Okay, let's move on to the second portion of our podcast today. It's called Let's Spar. And now, in that
Yeah.
last portion with Yes to Everything, I required you to kind of speak against your conscience. And in this one, you get the choice. So I'm going to show you a topic, and you get to either speak your conscience and just tell us how you actually feel about it. You're going to get a minute to build your case, and then I'm going to get a minute to respond to your case, and then we're going to have a minute after that to kind of duke it out. And so that it's 2 minutes of channeling our inner teacher and 1 minute of going to battle. Okay. And by battle, I mean, let's keep it civil. We are going to allow the other person to respond, but we're just going to increase the intensity level. And we're allowed to ask questions of each other in that third minute. We're allowed to interrupt each other and so on. Okay. So the first 2 minutes are uninterrupted case construction, and the last minute is where we can then ask questions of each other and just try to build up some momentum. Okay, so now let's have a look at the first question. All right, round one. Marriage. Has it become an outdated institution? Let me put 3 minutes on the clock. Now, do you want to say yes or no to this?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so that's how you
Yeah.
actually feel, right?
Yes. Well, I think quite literally it's an outdated institution because the institution was originally developed as a more of an economic and a financial transaction, and it was largely to sell women for various different reasons, or to negotiate their trade for, it may have been economic power, it may have been political power, it may have been alliances, etc. So the whole idea behind it is misogynist and sort of degrading, I think, to women. But more generally, I think, marriage today, especially as a legal sort of contract, it's kind of unnecessary. We have other mechanisms in place now to ensure that a relationship between two people has some sort of legal backing, has mechanisms in place for dealing with separations, financial issues, etc. So the whole idea of it just seems superfluous now. I don't see why it's even necessary anymore.
Okay. On the other hand, you said the idea of the marriage institution started off as something to sell women, or to kind of do, I guess, transfer women from one family to the other as a kind of a property. Perhaps, but hasn't the idea of marriage evolved over the years? I mean, when people get married today, nobody's really thinking about selling women or transferring their property. And you said it's inherently a misogynistic kind of idea, but I mean, everyone that I know who gets married, they're usually quite happy about it, and including the women involved in it. And women are actually much more involved in the marriage process than men. So has it kind of evolved into something different these days, and something a little bit more pleasant? A lot of things start off as a bad idea, and then over time it gets tweaked into something that makes a lot more sense. I think that's what happened to marriage. I think that people enjoy getting married, and it gives it sort of this extra layer of reason to stay together and not break up.
I get to respond now, right?
It's the last minute is open.
Yeah. Oh, first off, what you're saying about the marriage being changed now, and I think that it's not really. I mean, I think we still look at it as a transaction. I think our personal experiences with friends we know, etc. There are so many places in the world where still women are being traded for marriage. It happens all the time, and
Okay,
and
but
it's still.
is it fair to say a marriage gives you more incentive to work out your problems, and that if you weren't in a marriage, that over time and in a long-term relationship, any kind of conflict could feasibly end your relationship, but in a marriage you
Well,
have an extra
sure,
incentive.
sure. I think in a world where we have relationships or individuals who are not dependent upon each other, where we have women who are free to work, free to carry on their own lives, free to be economically independent, then a breakup it's not such a bad thing necessarily. Sometimes it can be a good thing, in fact.
All right, thank you, well done. Next question. All right, this is we're talking about AI chat GPT. This is a recent phenomenon. And every, I guess, media outlet is jumping on the bandwagon, and I think
Mm.
Google recently paid $10 billion to get on this bandwagon and provide its own AI chat. This is happening whether anyone likes it or not. There hasn't been really much research that's just all of a sudden been thrust on us. Is AI chat as we know it right now? We don't know much about it. But is it going to improve the world? This idea that you can just put topics. I mean, you're a journalist. Is this going to improve journalism? Is it going to improve education, the business world? Or is this a scourge that we now have to deal with?
I need to take a position on, or why don't you choose this time? Because I'm very ambivalent about this, but why don't
Okay,
you
fair
choose? Yeah,
enough. Fair enough. So
yeah.
I'll go first and I'll speak my conscience. Oh, yeah. I was expecting you to say no. I'm going to say yes. I think AI chat, first of all, we cannot resist the tide of change. And then every time a new technology enters the world, there's a demographic of people that resist the tide of change. But social media itself, having Facebook accounts and Instagram has kind of replaced the need to keep a diary. So now everybody has a record of their life. And, people railed against it when it first happened. And now it kind of seems more useful. So perhaps over time, AI chat, the benefits of it will become more apparent. But from what I can see now, it looks like it's supplanting the need to write. And from an educational point of view, that's a little bit scary. However, I think most people are natural speakers more than they are writers. And our current education system kind of favors people who can write. And I think we'll have a much fairer representation of people's skills and mastery of subjects if we allow them to speak. And when we take writing out of the equation, and then there's a bigger premium on speaking, and more people can speak well than write.
I disagree that the world can be a better place where people are better speakers and writers. I think what we've seen over history is once people had the skill of literacy and being able to read and write, and especially it changes the way the mind works as well. And I think it creates a more subtle thinking patterns and the way of looking at the world, having a critical thinking. In fact, I think that in an oral world, we are already in a world where orality is becoming dangerous, where people that are good at rhetoric can really rise up and become wield a lot of power. And it's a dangerous world to live in when the speech is our measure of intelligence and leadership, or et cetera, where the written word creates a world where there's more room for critical thought and for
Well, but if some
not being.
people are so much better at speaking than others and they have an unfair advantage in debates, can't that advantage be eliminated if someone can enter the debate with AI generated ideas and be able to kind of stand their ground with such a person?
Yeah, but I think more generally when we have a machine sort of which has to learn from something, it's learning from us essentially, right? And it's learning our own biases, it's learning our own ways of doing things, it's learning our own weaknesses. So it really becomes a manipulative tool, and we're already seeing this
Well,
with
you said it
AI.
will change the way our mind works, but that presumes that our mind are somehow devious or not working well. Is it perhaps that maybe the AI will improve the way our mind works and give us more options to think about, and maybe we can use it as a foundation of our thoughts and not a complete
I think
replacement?
like any tool, if it's used properly, but I think the history of humanity shows that we don't use tools well.
All right, that's a good one. And we got one more. Well, recently objects have been appearing in the sky in North America, and we've heard like this past week we've heard the U.S. jet fighters have been instructed to shoot them down, no questions asked. I watched a politician fumble and bumble about like why was he was saying we know absolutely nothing about it, we don't know where it came from, we don't know who owns it, so we felt we had the right to just destroy it and blow it to smithereens. So Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, just thanked our American counterparts for employing NORAD to keep our airspace safe. Do you agree that NORAD is justified in shooting down these unidentified flying objects?
Okay, give me a second here to figure out which side I want to go on. let's try no. You know, oftentimes, this is one of the problems we have. I mean, I think that humans, as a species, operate on fear of the unknown. And I think that, I certainly think that once the balloon, for instance, was identified and we knew what it was, we knew where it came from, it was justified in shooting that down. I mean, it was clearly a spy balloon
You can't have it both ways, Mister. Stay on
oh
your
no,
side.
I mean the balloon, but everything else, the other four objects that were shot down, they're mysterious. We don't know what they are. We weren't even sure what they were doing. I think it's, like we can't be ruled by fear of the unknown. I think we need to be able to investigate. There were means of investigating, I think, more closely without having to shoot this down. I think there was a moment of panic because of this Chinese spy balloon that was the first object to show up. That humans do what humans do, which is to panic and be fearful, and then respond and act based on our
I
fear.
think another thing that humans do is recognize patterns. And these other four mysterious objects that appeared in the sky, they came very close to that first one, which was identified as a Chinese spy balloon. And so, I read an article where people, I guess more learned people on this topic, are inferring that all of these things were spy devices, and that this type of balloon, or this area of, it's called lower space, there's that is now being weaponized by countries as a new place to wage warfare, like the ground, the air, the sea, and lower space. It's very easy to send objects and balloons are well suited for that I guess level or area. They're hard to detect. There's more out there than what we imagine, and they all have to do with spying on us. And so is it possible that perhaps the government didn't really tell us everything they know, but they have a pretty good reason why they need to shoot it down?
Well, I mean, if you're going to bring up like information that we aren't aware of course, if information comes up, they know more about this, then it may have been justified. But I think that's a different debate we'd be having based on the information that we have now. Was it justified? No, because we don't have any information right now. It was a time for observation. It was a time to see what was up. These objects weren't moving so quickly in or out of our airspace that we can just we could have watched them for a while.
But those car-sized objects that were shot down were confirmed to be kind of in the same airspace shared with airplanes and commercial planes. So they present a threat to the public. Isn't it right to kind of protect us? Isn't the duty of the government to protect us?
Well, I mean, I think it's easy to know and track where these things are, and airplanes can have pilots that can change course. It's not that hard to do. I think this, again, that was
one of the features of these objects is that it appeared in the radar, and when they went to check on it, it was gone, and they're moving in very weird ways. And so, should we take a chance? Okay, time's up. You got me.
No, that was actually good. I wouldn't have known how to respond to that, because I didn't know that these things were disappearing off radar. That's freaky. That's probably a UFO. So leave it alone. We don't want to start a war.
I know.
We don't want to
and
start
if it
a
is
war
a
with another
UFO,
species.
if it is a UFO, should we be automatically shooting it down and showing
No,
aggression,
of course
hostility?
not. Haven't you watched any science fiction movie? Seriously.
Yeah, this one looks like Independence Day, what we're doing.